So today we have Darryl Bosshardt here to talk to you guys. I'll read his bio really quick and then I'll let him get going. Darryl is passionate about healthy living, healthy eating, and lifelong learning. Darryl is a spokesperson for Redmond, manufacturer and distributor for natural, healthy, and sustainable products. Darryl grew up working for the family mineral business in Redmond, Utah, and then earned a Bachelor's of Science degree at Southern Utah University, followed by an MBA at Western Governors University. Today he is here to speak to you about making a contribution that matters. So go ahead and welcome Darryl.
Thank you. Okay, it's good to be here, and I didn't want to have a mic, so I'm going to talk loud. You guys in the back, can you hear me okay? Excellent. Okay, so I am, as Ali introduced me, I'm Darryl Bosshardt. I'm from Redmond. Some of you from Utah probably have no idea where Redmond, Utah is at. That's okay. Anybody know where Nephi's at? Okay, so south of there, do you know where Gunnison's at? Okay, a few more. South of there, there's a little town called Redmond, and that's where I'm from. It's 3 miles north of Salina, right in the middle of nowhere, but it's a great place to grow up. This is my family. I've got a wife and 3 little boys. When I'm not here giving a presentation or in the office, oh, my wife has the prettiest blue eyes. That isn't touched up. That's her actual pretty eyes. No contacts or anything. I've got 3 little boys. We love backpacking, hiking, canyoneering. Zion National Park, I just love spending time down there. This is Kolob Canyon down there. I keep bees on the side. I just like basically everything outdoors. So, a little bit about Redmond. You should have all gotten a shaker of salt when you came in today. Everybody get one of those little shakers? If not, there's some over at the table. This is the product that most of us know us by. When you hear Redmond, this is what most people know us by. We're the #1 brand in health food stores. We're in Harmon's and Smith's and stores across Utah. But we're actually a lot more than just that little blue shaker of salt. So I'm going to show a quick video here, and then we'll continue. I will try to get this to work right.
Good morning, Neil.
Redmond began when my father and uncle needed a way to feed their families and give their boys some work. I'm sure Dad and Lamar would be amazed as to how it grew far beyond their wildest expectations. They treated people the way they wanted to be treated. That was their guiding principle. That's what the company's maintained ever since.
We started as a salt company, but it's gone from very basic salt to many kind of specialty products in the hunting industry, in agriculture, natural foods farm, dairy, 3 stores, vinyl fence. So quite a bit different than what it looked like 30 years ago. In the end, we're really not a salt company or a vinyl company, we're a people company. In that we believe that ultimately the experience of work is about developing human potential. And business can become a vehicle for a person's personal growth.
I am so happy to have so many people to learn from and to grow with together as a group. It means everything to me.
I love the values of continual learning, growing, being a better person.
With Redmond, it's not just working with a co-worker. We bond more than, the average company.
We put a lot of resource into trainings that we hold, activities like PAL. It's an investment in people.
Redmond's a place where we're seen as individuals that can make a difference in the world, and it's great to be a part of a company that is committed to helping us achieve our best potential.
Our basic vision statement at Redmond is that we strive to elevate the human experience. And we do that internally with the structure and the opportunities that we provide, but it certainly applies with customers and what we're trying to do in the world and really create an offering that really make a significant difference in a person's life.
I've had people call me in tears, thanking me for these products, telling me what these products have done for them.
I believe it makes a big difference, and I'm really proud to be a part of that.
Redmond's a place where you can come and be who you are, feel like you can make a difference. and contribute to something much larger than ourselves.
One of my basic desires was to create a workplace that could be meaningful and that could have a significant impact on a person's life. And it hit me that the workplace can be our charity. It can be our incubator for growth in our effort to serve and to feel like that our life has mattered, that our work matters, that we have significance.
Redmond encouraged me and builds this environment around me that makes me be my best self.
The principles that are taught help me here at work, but they also make me a better husband and a better father.
It's changed my life, and it's changed the life of my family.
You know, Gandhi said, be the change you want in the world. And so the reason we do why we do is it's just the way we choose to live. It's the way we choose for our world to be. Hopefully that spreads and has an impact on the world at large also.
So that's a little bit about who we are, how we came to be, and today I want to talk about making a contribution that matters, because Greg Prince, he's actually the person who invented the immunization for RSV, and he says that you've got to do two things. You've got to do what you love and do something that makes a difference. Because you could love what you do and then not make a difference in the world, and I guess that's okay for some, but we really wanted to make a contribution that matters, and so we try to build our company around that. We've actually been noticed by Forbes, by Inc. magazine, by the Small Business Administration, by the state of Utah as a great place to work. So after you're done with school here and you're looking for a quote-unquote real job, consider us. We're a great company to work for, and we have a lot of fun and unique ideas that I'll talk about here in a second. But I wanted to just show you a couple of things on how Redmond comes together first. So Redmond, that's the parent company, the holding company. You see this in the middle. Then we have a lot of different divisions of Redmond outside of that. So a lot of people may have noticed the red-colored salt on the roads in the wintertime up in the canyons. That's our salt. We mine about 60,000 tons a week of salt out of the ground. Most of that goes to salt roads in the wintertime or to agricultural uses. Very little of it goes to the food salt, but it is a component. This is our food products division. We have dirt toothpaste. It's called Earth Paste. It looks crazy, but actually that's it right there. It looks like mud. So you brush your teeth with mud, but it actually works amazing and it tastes even better. We have an animal products division, so if animal husbandry is your thing, there's a spot for you there, whether it's racehorses or Olympic horse competitions, or in the hunting industry. We have a division that covers that as well. We have four health food stores, a natural foods dairy. We do raw milk and raw cheese and things like that. We also have a vinyl fence division called Best Vinyl. They're based out of American Fork. So again, if construction is your thing, you like pergolas and decks and helping people beautify their yards, why there might be a spot for you there as well. And then I want to talk a little bit about SOAR. We have a nonprofit division at Redmond that we have, kind of like the Whole Foods Foundation people have heard of. So if you work at Redmond and you want to take part, it's not required, but we have 4 principles of showing up and sharing what you have, doing your thing and engaging with the community. And we hope by doing this that we elevate the human experience, both for our associates as well as for those in the world around us. I've got one more little video clip here. This was a quick trip that we took a bunch of our associates to down to Costa Rica. And so a little bit about that, and then we'll move on. So I show that so you can see that work doesn't have to be this drudgery. It doesn't have to be this 9 to 5 that you enter when you leave college. We like at Redmond to think that work should be our charity. It should be our gift to the world and not have to go to work for 8 hours and then go and try to give back afterwards. We'd like you to be able to do that as part of work. And that's how we think you can make a contribution that matters and not have to subdivide all parts of your life. You can do it all in the same time if you're able to find a way to do that. And it may not be at Redmond. This is another recent project. This was this year's project down in Peru. It was a water project with the village. And they came up with the project. We just showed up with the hands and some of the resource, and it was their project. And it was, again, a way for associates and their spouses to come down and see the world and elevate their life as well as elevating the lives of others. So Our shared values at Redmond, it builds an acronym, POUR. And those are the things that I'm going to talk about today, is our shared values at Redmond and how we think with these shared values at Redmond you can make a contribution that matters, and by doing that you'll elevate the human experience. Meaning elevate your life, elevate your family's life, your friend's life, and your community. Because if you're having a great day at work, you come home and you're much more happy to be around, and that rubs off. If you come home and you're miserable and you yell at your kids and they go and kick the dog and the dog goes and bites the cat, it's this chain of misery that doesn't have to be that way. If you can make a contribution that matters and find a life that's meaningful for you. So our first P is purpose. Anytime that you know your purpose in life, and this is kind of a long way to say that, but Redmond's unique culture depends on associates who dare to show up with our best work and to work to live our lives on purpose. When we do the work to know how our unique contribution connects to the vision of our team, we can volunteer what we do and make a contribution that matters. I love this because it speaks so much to me. And you've got these animals there, and it's obviously for a fair selection we're going to everybody take the same exam, and that exam is we're going to see who can climb the tree the best. And how silly that is, but yet sometimes in school and in work situations, we try to grade everybody on the same level. And at Redmond, we try not to do that. And we want to find your unique contribution. And so we talk about being strength-focused. And when we say strength, we don't mean something that you're necessarily great at. When we say strength, we mean something that strengthens you. Because you may be really good at the piano, but you play for an hour and you're miserable when you're done. That's not fair to say that's your strength, because it actually weakens you. We want to give you a role or help you find your role that makes you feel strong, that makes you feel incredible when you leave for the day. And so we try to find a seat, not that necessarily you're great at, although we hope you are, but something that makes you feel strong, because you don't practice everything at the same level. For instance, my wife is a math teacher. She's incredible at math, and I enjoy music and the arts. So if my wife, and I enjoy history, but if my wife spends an hour studying history, at the end of the hour she's actually probably less effective than she was when she started. Now, she can spend an hour on math and go from here to really up to here. And I can spend an hour on music and go from here to here. But ask me to spend an hour on math, and that's quite depleting. And so if you know yourselves as well as you know your craft, you're going to be able to find a lot better place to contribute in this life, which is the second point there. Know yourself as well as you know your craft. Yeah, you might be studying business or maybe biology or whatever that is, but know what drives you, because then you can volunteer that most of the time. I used to run with the EMTs, and it was amazing in an EMT situation. In most situations, you have politics that creep in, right? Maybe in a hospital setting, you've got the administrators, you've got the nurses, you have the admin, you have the doctors, and you have the janitorial staff, and the janitors hate the nurses hate the doctors hate the admin. But yet when somebody comes into the ER and is dying on the table, all of that goes away, right? You never see somebody fighting over who's going to give the shot in the ER room. They might fight about that before they get there, but if you know yourself as well as you know your craft, when somebody's dying on the table, you can step back and say, you know what, somebody else ought to do that. That's not me. And somebody else will take care of those things. So know yourself as well as you know your craft. And finally, put yourself in the place of most potential. At Redmond, we have a very flexible culture, meaning that we don't require in most situations that you have to be here and be here at this time and leave here at this time. We want you to put yourself in the place of most potential. So that might mean working late on a Saturday night, but it also might mean leaving early on Tuesday to go home and spend time with your mother or a sick friend or something like that. So you know better than anybody else where your most potential is today, and that might be sitting in class. And that might not be sitting in class. Don't tell your professors I said that. But your place of most potential may not be in a class in a certain day. And so if you can know yourself and put yourself in the place of most potential, you'll be able to have that purpose and drive to accomplish a lot. This is our CEO, and he really exemplifies this purpose incredibly well. And as a CEO, you have a lot of pressure both inside the company and outside of the company to do certain things, to spend money a certain way, to take care of people a certain way. Some of the trips that we go on, the bankers just shake their heads and say, you guys are crazy in this investment. But the bankers don't see what we see. And so we want to invest in people. And so he knows what that vision is and has a very clear window. I also wanted you to know Evelyn. Evelyn is amazing. She's one of our managers at our health food stores, and she has this sense of purpose. When she comes in, you can just see it in her eyes. This story is told, I don't know that I have it on here, but she came into the office one day and she was holding this cabbage, like this really big cabbage, and she was talking about how she's going to make this into kimchi, and she was just so excited that anybody that talked to her was just amazed with this passion that she has for healthy food. And so that just bleeds over in everywhere of her life. So she'll earn more at Redmond, she'll contribute more, and her friends and family are much more happy because of this smile that she carries with her wherever she goes. Okay, the second one. So passion or purpose is the first one. The second one is openness. Now, how open are we to new ideas and new experiences? This is the idea of openness. Your beliefs don't make you a free thinker. The ability to change your beliefs do. Now that can be scary at times. If somebody questions, why are you coming around this business problem this certain way? Or why are you approaching it like this? But if you're able to really stay open, you're able to really consider all the other options. If you can't change your mind, how do you know you still have one? That's my wrestling coach. Used to say that to us all the time. If you can't change your mind, how do you know you still have one? And I would encourage you to have that mentality. When you go into a new problem, just have that openness. We call that at Redmond Scout Mindset. We won't have the time to watch the YouTube today, but the TED Talk, there's a great TED Talk. If you do a search for TED Talk, Scout Mindset, it pulls up this incredible presentation on what it means to have a Scout mindset. Meaning that before you go into a situation, you don't have this preconceived notion of what the situation should look like. You'd be a very terrible scout if you believe that the battlefield's supposed to look a certain way, and because of that, then you present your findings that way, when in reality it looks like something completely different. And this is the TED Talk that you're looking for. So it's Scout Mindset, and she does an incredible job in that presentation. I don't have time to go over it today, but I think you would really enjoy that one. It's a short one too. It's only about 11 minutes long. So she says in her TED Talk that the Scout mindset is the ability to remain curious, open-minded, and unemotional about our opinions. And that's key, to be curious, open-minded, and unemotional about what it is that we're seeing in our environment. And if you can do that, then in a conference room setting, when you're debating something that's very passionate at the office, the politics go away, and it's about finding the best answers, not necessarily about who has the best answer, because it really changes how the meeting flows. Because of that, we believe there should be more than one right answer. In almost everything, there is more than one right answer. A great photographer, DeWitt Jones, he's a photographer for the National Geographic, and he talks about shooting thousands and thousands of photographs for one episode or for one magazine of the Geographic, because there's just so many different right answers when it comes to photography. When it comes to how do you go about living your life, there's a lot of great answers. And because my answer looks like this doesn't mean that your answer should look like that. I've got 3 sons, and every one of those sons has a very different approach to life, which is okay because they're 3 unique beings and they have their own sense of purpose. And so finding that and being okay with the idea of there's more than one right answer will really change the paradigm in many meetings. Instead of trying to argue for the best answer, you realize that there is more than one right answer. And that is DeWitt Jones. So many things begin to change when you come at the world from the perspective of more than one right answer. And then finally, the danger of a single story. This is another incredible TED Talk. And oftentimes, we have this idea in our mind that a certain person or a certain problem has to be approached by a certain way. She grew up in this TED Talk, she talks about growing up in Africa, and she comes to the States to go to school. And her roommate says, well, what kind of music did you listen to? And she says, Mariah Carey. This was a few years ago, probably older than many of this group. But it was just, her roommate was just floored that somebody that grew up in Africa would have the same taste in music. And it's not that, the problem with stereotypes is not that they're untrue, but they're incomplete. And that's the whole point of this idea of the danger of a single story. Sometimes we go through life and we think, oh, if you're from Southern Utah, you must be like this. Or if you're into the music or the arts, you must be like this. And that doesn't mean that's not sometimes the case, but it's a very limiting answer versus this danger of a single story. So in Redmond, as we talk about this danger of a single story and this idea of openness, oftentimes we think in dichotomies, that something is either hot or it's cold, it's good or it's bad. You're going to fight or are you going to run? So you've got these two things. And maybe even on this continuum, you know where you might lie. You might say, you know, if I get into an aggressive situation or if I feel pressured, I'm going to stand up and give them all the facts immediately and show them how they're an idiot. Or you might be like the flight person that says, you know what, it's not worth the fight. I'm going to just shut down and I'm going to go complain to my sister instead. And so we each kind of come to that from those two dichotomies. However, the answer is not to be in the middle. That's not the answer. In Redmond, we see things, a lot of things as a continuum. So in Redmond, when we talk about openness, we talk about two factors, curiosity and candor. Those are the two things at Redmond that you really need to have to be successful. Curiosity means you're just open. You're curious. You want to find more than one right answer. You're open to new ideas. You want to find new things. But candor is the ability to stand up and say, this is what I believe and what I think and why I think it that way. That doesn't mean it's the right answer, but if you don't speak up, then it can't move the conversation forward. So rather than saying we want to have complete curiosity or complete candor, and like it's on this continuum, you've got to have one or the other, we'd like to have both. Have complete curiosity around a subject, but then complete candor as well and be able to speak your mind. And if you can do those two things, you'll really succeed at Redmond versus trying to, you know, if somebody's over here really high on the candor and really high on and low on the curiosity, we wouldn't want to say, hey, lower your candor. That's very unproductive. Or if somebody's over here really curious, but they don't speak their mind, we don't want to say, hey, get less curious, because that doesn't help either. So we have to have both of these things, candor and curiosity. Paul at Redmond really exemplifies this idea of openness. And these statements here, I actually emailed the company and said, hey, can you tell me who in your mind really exemplifies openness? And then the people that had high responses, I grabbed those to highlight here in the presentation. But you can see as you read this, and I won't read the whole thing to you, but Paul, when he's in meetings, he has this incredible ability to seek out and to get people to share their opinions, to help people share other right answers. Rather than being one of these that are maybe so forceful in their own opinion that no other opinions are shared, he's able to really seek those out. And that's when we talk about openness. We want to find more people like Paul who are able to encourage openness in others. Yeah, he's got a lot of his own great ideas. We really want him to pull out the great in others. The word Ubuntu, that's the U in poor. This is an African word. There's a great, I love TED Talks. There's a great TED Talk about what I learned from Gandhi. It's about this young man who grew up in a game preserve in Africa, and Gandhi would spend time with his family. And the idea of Ubuntu is this idea that we are because of us, that all of us are here because of us and not without us. A great example of Ubuntu, if you are in a tribe that has this in their culture, if you let's say you make a really bad mistake, something that's just devastatingly bad for the community. Well, sometimes outside in the U.S., even in college or in Utah, the result is, hey, we're going to shame you into acting better. You know, if my kid does something wrong, I can manipulate the behavior by making them feel either silly or dumb or inferior. But that's the opposite of Ubuntu. In Ubuntu, what we would do is we'd put the person, the offender, in the center of the tribe, and everybody in the tribe would come and tell them how good of a person they are. Because really, that's what you need at that point in your life, right? If I've just made a mistake, let's say my son, he's only 12 now, but let's say he comes home and he wrecks the car. He forgets to put the brake on. He leaves to work, he comes back and the car is rolled down the hill and smashed into whatever it was. Now when he comes in, at that point, does he need me to point out how stupid it was for him to not set the brake? Now he's pretty aware of that, hyper aware of that at that point when he comes in. What he really needs is to know that, hey, people are more important than things, and let's make sure we set the park brake the next time. Now that sounds great when I tell the story. In 4 years when he starts to drive, hopefully I'll have that same level-headedness when he comes in and he's wrecked the car. But that's the idea of Ubuntu, that we are because of us, that our associates are because of Redmond, and Redmond is because of the associates. And it's this building up of each other. I am because of you, you are because of us. The Happiness Advantage is a great book. Sean Aker wrote this. He wrote a book. He's been on lots of TED Talks and talks about the happiness advantage and how happiness, when you're happy, you bring that to everybody around you. You see a smiling face and it's a lot more hard to be grumpy. And at the same time, if somebody comes in and they're grumpy, it kind of wears off too, right? And so great book, great idea behind the happiness advantage. This, I think, is pretty powerful. Research shows that our belief in another's potential brings that potential to life. It's called the Pygmalion Effect. The best leaders and teachers and parents are the ones who view an interaction as an opportunity for others to grow. And you can probably think of people in your life who have felt that way, that treated you with more respect and maybe more confidence. They had more confidence in you than you had. When somebody does that, that really lifts you up, gives you the permission to grow and to develop. Going to move on to people versus things. I kind of mentioned this a little bit with my example of my son, but I wanted to show you some examples in real life. Now this, fortunately, what you're seeing here is a big excavator, and the big excavator is actually pushed over a big crusher. And this is not a good thing to have your crusher sitting on its side like this. And in some companies, when this had happened, you would either yell at the person, you would make them feel very small, insignificant, but actually, you think this person is going to move that excavator again without making sure that the road on the one side is built first? No. He's already figured out the problem. It's probably a very good $30,000 education. So why in the world would we let this person go? Because they're actually one of the best invested in people we have, because they've just really learned a valuable lesson about not tipping this over when they're trying to move the crusher from point A to point B. And again, instead of saying, why in the world, what were you thinking, you're an idiot, you're stupid, how did you do this? No, people are more important than things. This is a great education. This is another one. This is kind of a rookie mistake. This is a big pile of salt, and when you're scooping away a pile of salt, you need to do it a certain way so you don't have the top slough off and bury the front half of your loader. And again, this is something that it shouldn't have happened, but again, rather than trying to make them feel small, we embrace that and say, hey, you're okay. We're glad you're okay, and now you've learned a lesson, and let's move forward. And so it really changes the culture, and it lets people, these are some extreme examples, but if you know, this is another, that's a nice crane that tipped upside down. If you know that you're not going to be in trouble, you're much more likely to be able to admit your own mistakes much earlier on. If you have this culture at your house where if you come home and you make a mistake and your mom flies off the handle, the chances of you sharing another challenge with your mom are going to be much less. And so by creating a culture of openness and this idea of Ubuntu where you can make mistakes, you can show up as the real you, and we're going to embrace you and love you and bring you in, then all of us excel, because then the guards go down and the productivity goes way up if you realize that, hey, to err is human, to err is fine. Let's minimize those, but let's don't destroy people or make people feel small or insignificant when they do something that maybe one of us would have done and we just didn't get caught doing it. So Jason Nilsson, he's one of our team leaders at Redmond. He does this incredibly well. He sees people for who they are. At Redmond, we love the book. It's called Good to Great. Jim Collins wrote it. If you haven't read it, it's a great one, especially if you're in the business department. Jim Collins talks about the Hedgehog Concept, and he talks about the idea of having a bus. And a company's a bus. And you got to do a couple things. First off, you needed to get the right people on the bus and the wrong people off the bus. And that's sometimes easier said than done. But once you have everybody that's supposed to be on the bus in the bus, the next goal is to get people in the right seat on the bus. So at Redmond, we talk about if there's a situation where somebody's struggling at Redmond, we ask two questions. Is this a bus problem or a seat problem? Because oftentimes you can have great people, they're in the wrong seat on the bus, and they're miserable, and the people around them are miserable, and their work is less than ideal. You get that person in the right seat, and it's a 180-degree switch. And they're amazingly productive. They lift those around them. And it wasn't the fact that they were a bad person, they were just in the wrong seat. And so we really try to find people to get them on the right seat through openness and finding their strength. And Jason does that really well. And all of his teams that he's ever been on, he's really able to help people volunteer what they have and then get them in the right seat to do that. We have a very low turnover at Redmond. It's less than 1%. Because once somebody comes to Redmond, even if maybe the right seat isn't what you were hired on for, we find a better seat for you, and almost always that seat change is much more productive than a bus change. And then the last one is resourceful. We pride ourselves at Redmond of being very, very resourceful, and you can accomplish a lot with resourcefulness. If you have a purpose, if you're open and you have this idea of Ubuntu, of letting those around you, and then you have just a gut sense of resourcefulness, you can accomplish so much more than a team of experts, actually. If you have a team of people who are passionate, excited, and resourceful, they can accomplish things that a whole team of experts overlook time and time again. At Redmond, we call this scrappy. You may be a scrappy person, or you know some scrappy people. These are the ones that, if there's a problem, they're going to have duct tape out there and maybe some baling wire, and they're going to get this solved one way or the other. They're also the same one. They're kind of annoying, actually, because I'm kind of one of those. But if you're raking your leaves in your yard, and a neighbor comes over to visit with you, he's the one who's going to hand you a rake so you can both rake together, versus the person that maybe just sits back and puts the rake down and visits for an hour. And we need both of those people, right? If everybody were like me, it would be so high-strung that would all be crazy and in institutions. So you need some people that are like that, that are really scrappy and intense, and can just take a problem and see the solution and solve it. This is an example of that. This is my grandfather's. So my grandfather started Redmond back in the 50s. It was him and his brother. And this was his saw for years and years. And it's kind of an example, I think, when I think of scrappiness. His saw handle breaks, and instead of buying a new one or complaining, he grabs the welder, grabs a horseshoe, and now he's back in business. Now, this might not be the best long-term solution unless you have a lot of gloves, because that's going to be a pretty hard handle. But it just shows that if you have this scrappiness, you can get so much accomplished. The next one is tenacious, being able to just keep going. Oftentimes, the first time or two something goes wrong, you might quit, versus going and going and going. And what's interesting about tenacity is I think it shows the importance of being in the right seat. Because if I'm trying to learn I play the saxophone, I play the piano. If I'm trying to learn some new saxophone number, I am extremely tenacious because I have a passion about it. I can work for a long period of time. You throw a big, ugly math problem in front of me, 5 to 10 minutes, and I'm ready to go back to the saxophone. My tenacity's gone. My wife's the other way. She would, if you had her sit down and play the piano, after 10 minutes, she's good. She can tinker a little bit. You put a math problem in front of her, and she will spend days figuring this out. And so tenacity, in order to be really tenacious, you have to be in a role. You have to be in the right seat. You have to know really what you're good at, what you're passionate about, because in those areas, you will be much more tenacious. You'll be much more creative if you're in an area that you're excited about. Math is a good example of this. My wife's a math teacher, and so she has these kids come up, and they say, well, I'm terrible at math, but they love soccer. And if you said, well, on your very first time playing soccer, were you able to dribble the ball? Well, no. How long did it take you? 6 months. So why don't you spend if you spend that same 6 months in soccer learning how to do this trick that you spent on your math, that'd be incredible. And all of a sudden, math wouldn't be a problem if you really were as tenacious about math as you are about soccer. And I'm not saying you should be. In fact, you shouldn't be. Because the last thing you want to have, a well-rounded knife, is the worst knife in the tool drawer. You want a team that's well-rounded because the people aren't. If you have an EMT team, you don't want 10 people that are excellent at doing tracheotomies, because that would be a really poor situation unless every time you walked onto scene, someone needed a trach tube put in. No, you want somebody that's great at tracheotomies. Somebody who's great with vomit, somebody who's great with babies, somebody who's great with blood. And the team is well-rounded precisely because the individual members aren't. And that's what we try to find at Redmond. The teams that really succeed at Redmond is that the teams are well-rounded, but the people aren't well-rounded. They really know what they're good at, and they deliver that most of the time. And they volunteer what they're good at most of the time. Tenacious, this is an old picture. This is my grandpa's brother. This is early on, and he was so scrappy and tenacious. His brother was the one who came up with the saw example. But Lamar would sit there and work and work and work to solve a problem in the mine. Just amazingly a great example of tenacity. And then finally, results focused, because you can be, if you love saxophone music and you have zero ability at it, and you work and you work and you work and you work, and you still have your ability went from terrible to just really bad, that's okay for a hobby, but it's not okay for a job. And so you need to be able to find a spot where you can excel and you can love it, but but you also can be good at it, and you can strive for those results. I wanted to share an example of that with Todd. Todd is the one in the blue shirt, and this is Joe. But Todd, we have a rail site, so we ship a lot of de-icing material. This is the stuff that keeps the roads safe. And in the winter times, we will load whole trains, like 60-car trains, and you have to load those really quick. You can't do them when you want to. The whole train comes in, you got to get them all loaded. And Todd's in charge of that. And so one night he was down by Nephi, and he's trying to load all of these trucks, and the loader breaks. This is 2 in the morning. This is a big loader. You don't just come up loaders lightly. And the loader's down, and he's got this whole train to load. Well, you got to know Todd. He's just a fun, you can kind of see his personality there, just a fun-loving guy. You meet him, you love him. You probably don't want him at your house every day because he'd get a little bit annoying, but just an incredible guy, Todd is. And so he's here 2 in the morning, and so he has to load this train. So he could do like a lot of people might do. He might throw his hands in the air, he might cry, he might walk off, he might complain, but what Todd did is he knew the guy that was about 1.5 miles down who had a loader that was just sitting there at 2 in the morning. And so he thought, well, why not? So he hikes down 1.5 miles, stills this loader at 2 in the morning, comes over and loads his truck. Now, normally, I'm not recommending you try this because most people probably couldn't get away with it. Because loaders, especially the loaders we use, are very expensive loaders. But he left a note and stole this loader, and then he brought it back when he was done, and left a note and left him some treats and things like that. But that is tenacity. A little gutsy, but also pretty tenacious. And that's how Todd is. He can get anything done. You give him some baling wire, some duct tape, or a loader 1 mile away, and he's going to get that train car loaded no matter what it takes. Now, in order to do that, you have to have a lot of groundwork laid before. I'm not recommending you just go steal your neighbor's car because you need to get to school because you're results focused. But he knew the person. He had done a lot of groundwork. You can't live near Todd and not know him. He will come and seek you out. So, and that's Todd. So, when you are to be successful at Redmond, we talk about 2 things. We have individual performance and we have team influence. Now, oftentimes, if you're looking for a job interview, they might say, we need somebody who does this, 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 and this. You might be a real jerk, but that's what we need you to do. And we try to balance those out in these 2, in this chart. So we have team influence across the bottom and individual performance across the right. So obviously, when we're hiring, nobody wants to be hired. Nobody's going to hire somebody that has 0 team influence and 0 performance. That's a non-starter there. However, if we find you're over here and you're a great contributor to the team, you have all of these shared values we just talked about. You have purpose, you have openness, you have the ideas of Ubuntu, and you're very resourceful. If your individual performance is lacking, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't be at Redmond. Often that means that you just need a seat change or maybe some additional training. And so rather than just saying, hey, you're out of here, we try to find them a new seat on the bus. Now, if you're up here where you're high individual performance, you have these friends you may know. If you ever worked at a place, you've got this superstar salesman, but just a real jerk to be around. In many organizations, that person stays around because their individual performance is so high. Well, at Redmond, again, that's equally problematic for us because if you're super high on the team influence or performance, you're excellent at your job, you're the best program we've ever seen, but you don't elevate the team, well, that doesn't work at Redmond either. And so our goal is to get you right up here because when we can get you there, either in the right seat and on the right bus, that's where we see the magic happen. And so because of that, I've got one more little video here. One of the things that we love to do at Redmond is we take trips. I'm going to try to get this other one to close here. We take trips to Lake Powell. I'm not sure I can scroll. Oh, here we go. And I'm not going to show you the whole thing because it's pretty long, but I'm going to try to jump over here to about. So you can kind of see when the magic happens, you can see what we're able to accomplish at Redmond.
courage. A hop if you wanna just bounce to my leverage. The evidence, as they say, is in the pudding. So show me the money like my name was Cuba Gooding. It ain't fool's gold, it's gold, fool. Can't stop, won't stop, keeping it old school. So cool. Big Spoon is my namesake plume. I keep it popping like a needle in a new balloon. And if you don't know by now, then you need more schooling. Let loose, kid, get stupid. Got more flavor than I know what to do. It's to get your hands up if you're part of the movement and bump to the baseline. I made it rock before your phone had FaceTime. Yes, sirree, you know my steez. I stay fresh to death like I'm drowning in Febreze. Up, up, and away we go. Up, up, and it's making me glow. Up, up, and away we go. Up, up, and like it and up, up and away. Up and away, I'm in pilot mode. One step ahead on this xylophone. That means I'm boss father. Speak dough, I'm boss father. Home of ahead and I'm all starving. All eyes on your boy and I'm post-sided. Wavy to your outsiders, I'm more lava. Let me open up like this a door knocker. Show you how I lay it down, boy, so proper. No scholar but Michael and losing my mind. So this is my time to
So when you have a group of people that love life, and when you have a business that loves people, it really comes together beautifully. And people sometimes will look at Redmond and they'll say, I want to come work there because it looks like just a party the whole time. And actually, it is a lot of fun, but we actually have fun because of the results we see. And we do that with these key values, this idea of making a contribution that matters. Because if you find out your individual contribution, whatever organization you're a part of, whether it's part of Redmond or part of a university or part of your own business that you start or part of teaching at a university or a college or at a grade school, or wherever you find your unique contribution, those around you are going to be so much better and so much more lifted up. So, just quick recap. Know your purpose. Spend a lot of time with this actually, and I'm not just kind of in the feel-good way, but know really what contribution that you have, your unique contribution to make in the world, and what makes you feel strong. Not what you're good at, that's important to know for sure, but what makes you feel strong. When you look at the last week, and this is something you may consider doing, take a bunch of 3x5 cards. You probably have, maybe you don't have them anymore. We used to have them all the time years ago. Take the sticky note function on your desktop. And any time that you see an hour slip away and you're like, wow, where did the time go? Write that on the sticky note. Because if time is flying by when you're involved in a project, that's an indicator of something that's making you feel strong. If an hour goes by, or if you get done and you should be tired, but you're not, you're uplifted. For me, mountain biking is that way. I can get done with a mountain biking ride and be completely physically spent, but yet emotionally so full I'm ready to do it again immediately, even though my body is saying, no, it's impossible. And so if you make a note of those things, maybe it's after you dance, or maybe you sing, or maybe you do a math problem, or maybe you spend some time in the chemistry lab, and all of a sudden 2 hours, 3 hours goes by, make a note of that. And then similarly, if you're working on a project that when you're done, you're just like, oh, if I ever have to do that again, I'm going to be miserable, make a note of that. And then it's not a matter of not having to do one or the other. It's just that next week, try to do more of this one. And when you're in a job down the road, volunteer for those things that make you feel strong, make you feel like alive, because those things are what's going to really make you much more successful, and you're going to earn much more than you would ever earn otherwise if you can put yourself in that place. Stay open. College kids have that ability, maybe more so than adults. We used to say that middle age is when your broad mind and your narrow hips begin to trade places. And so I would encourage you not to lose that when you get out of school, this idea of knowing and looking and seeking for new information and staying open to ideas, wherever they come from. And you will find yourself much better off. Remember this idea of Ubuntu with our friends, our family, with our roommates. If somebody makes a mistake, oftentimes they don't need you to point that out. If a spouse, anybody married in here? If a spouse makes a mistake, pointing that mistake out repeatedly, I would encourage you that's probably not the best way to go about addressing that mistake. Rather than saying, hey, I still love you. and embracing them, because this idea that you are because of us and I am because of you. And then finally, this idea of resourcefulness, that there are so many ways. If you are in your place of most potential, you will be incredibly resourceful. If you're in your place of least potential, you're going to have, the ideas you come are going to be very, very limited. I don't consider myself much of an artistic person, or even a creative person for that matter, because I don't like to draw. I can draw flies if I haven't showered for a few days, but that's about the extent of my drawing ability. But if you put me in the right place, I'm incredibly creative. It's just not the same way of creative that my wife is. My wife is very creative in certain ways that I'm not. And so being open allows you to be in your place of most potential, which allows you to then be resourceful, because you can't do any of those if you don't have all of them. So with that, I've got one more little video clip. I think we're really getting close on time, maybe 15 minutes left or so. So if anybody has any questions about Redmond or about some of these ideas I've presented, I'd love to take those. But there's another, just a short little video about Redmond, and we'll go from there.
This is a place where work can be fun, where you can be yourself, where you can feel connected. This is a place where you can explore, where you can discover your purpose, where you can feel at home. This is a place where you can share your ideas, where you can inspire others, where you can influence the future. This is a place where you can find your passion, where you can do your thing, where you can sing your song. This is a place where you can rediscover your smile, where you can be the change. Where you can make a difference. This is Redmond.
Okay. You might have to watch that one in a minute. That's about our crazy mud. That's about our crazy mud toothpaste. So if there's time, we've got a couple of really creative people on our team, and so this is about our ugly mud toothpaste. So we can watch that in a minute. But that's what I'd like to leave you with, is just those ideas: purpose, openness, Ubuntu, and resourcefulness. And really, if when some of you may be closer to graduating, some of you aren't, but we're always looking for great people and fun interns, so keep us in mind. And thanks for letting me come. Good to see you again.
Oh, it's good to see you. Thank you for coming.
Yeah.
So we want to thank Darryl for coming all the way out here from the big Heber Valley. And we have UVU bottle for you with a few important things that you'll need, like chapstick and, you know. Yeah, I have known Darryl for a long time, since about 2005, I think is when I first met you. 2004, I think is when I first met you, when he was working in Price, Utah. And I've watched him, and who cheered for Price? Are you from Price? I love Carbon in Emery County. I've watched him and followed his career, and it's cool to have him come and talk to you guys. His passion for leadership is his passion for life in general. I'm sure you can see he's just a very dynamic individual. And all of those things he talked about, they're not things he just made up. He's done his homework. He's lived it. He's practiced it. So I hope you took great notes, Can we get one more round of applause for Darryl?
Anything else you want to say?
Unless there's questions or...
Okay, are there any questions?
Yeah.
Yes.
You're expanding in all sorts of different places. Where would you like to expand next as a company?
That's a really good question. What we've typically done is we've actually listened to our customers. So our animal products division, the hunting industry products, those are there because we had customers come and say, we would like to have a product that do this. For years, we had people saying, hey, we love your salt and your clay. Would you be interested in doing some other body care products? So a lot of the things that we've done are actually outgrowths of listening to our customers. The other nice thing is diversity is great because if there's a bad snow year, growing up in the salt business, if we had a really bad snow year, and let's say 80% of the revenue comes from snow and icy roads, that's a real problem for the business. And it's hard for families that way too. And so what we found is we've gotten a little more diverse. If we have a slow snow year, actually that's great for fencing because there's no snow on the ground. And so rather than having to let people go in the summertime that are building fences all summer and now there's no place to build a fence, well now those families don't have to be laid off. They can come and they can work in the ice division during the summertime. And so we've tried to take businesses that complement each other and yet provides more stability for employees and families. So that's how I've done that. And so I'm not sure what the answer is. I think there will be other good products and categories we end up in, but it probably won't be because we have identified it or really targeted it as much as something that's kind of fallen in our lap because we've been lucky.
That's weird. You listen to people? Weird. All right. Any other questions?
Okay, I'll let you watch this last video, and then I'll really be done, and we'll get out of here. Oh, there is one over here.
One more.
So I do have a question, though. Over the last 3 semesters, I've been considering changing my major a lot, and now I've come to a more concrete idea of what I want to do in my life. But then I think of examples of people that have sought out their dreams and have taken risks of becoming artists and photographers, amongst other things, and like just, sorry, I mean like you know like those types of careers that that can take you somewhere. But then, for example, my dad, he decided to become an orthodontist instead of going out and doing what he loved, which was cinematography, because it seemed a little more concrete. So, according to your company, has there been a speech given or something in accordance with that in which you can only go so far before your purpose kind of overtakes you? Does that kind of sense?
Great
Does that make
question.
sense?
Yeah, great question. Obviously the answer for everybody is going to be a little different. In the book, Good to Great, he talks about the Hedgehog Concept. So he takes 3 circles and he overlays the 3 circles, and so there's this little kind of a sweet spot in the middle of the 3 circles. And the one circle is what you're passionate about. The other circle is what you're good at. And the other circle is what you can make money doing. And you kind of need those 3 to really long-term to eat. So I don't know what the answer is for everybody. I look at my kids now and I wonder what advice I'll give them, because I wouldn't want anybody to be miserable their entire life. But I think you can find ways you can make money and then have fun on the other parts of your other areas of your life. So my dad was kind of compelled to go into the salt business years ago. And now that he's 67 and he's talking about retirement, he has said, if he had to do it all over again, he may not have been in the salt business. He may have been a psychiatrist or a social worker or a therapist, because as an opportunity with his church responsibilities, he's done a lot of marriage counseling. And that marriage counseling really filled his cup. He felt incredible when he was doing some of this marriage counseling. Actually, because of that, they went and taught a lot of parenting and marriage classes in their local community. And so, hindsight, would he have been better off doing that as a full-time career, or doing the salt business as a full-time career, which then allowed him to take time and energy and go do this without having to worry about where the next meal comes from? And I wish I had a better answer. I do like that idea of what I'm good at, what I'm passionate about, and what I can make money doing. Because if you're really good at it and you can't make any money at it, maybe it's a hobby, something you fill your life with, but you don't do it as a career. And if something that you really love, but you're not very good at it, maybe singing in the shower or golf or something, that's an equal hobby. And so I think if you can find what you do those three things, and like Greg Prince says, he says, find something you love and something that you can make a difference at. And for him, those were kind of his two magic circles. I don't know if that helps or not. But
no, it does. Thank you.
Okay. I'll show this little video here, and then I appreciate you coming. Make sure you get a salt shaker if you came in late. I've got some little mini ones back there in the corner. And we'll end with this. It's just a couple minutes long, kind of a silly, kind of shows you the culture we have at Redmond.
Stay seated. We have a few more announcements after this video.
First time using earth paste? Earth paste is a lot more natural than other toothpaste, so you're going to notice a few differences. Earth paste doesn't have chemical thickeners, carrageenan, and emulsifiers, so you'll have better luck if you hold the tube vertically. The first time you see earth paste, you may think there's been a mistake. Most toothpaste includes the same chemical used to make paint and vinyl fences white. If it looks like mud, at least it's healthy, delicious mud. Once you start brushing, you'll notice that earth paste doesn't foam like other toothpaste. That's because earth paste doesn't have foaming agents like SLS or others. These chemicals are often associated with canker sores. Why do you adjust to the absence of foam? Rest assured that foam doesn't actually clean your teeth. Ever wondered why most toothpaste tubes include a poison warning? Not earth paste. We never add sodium fluoride as others do. In fact, every ingredient in earth paste has been used to support good health. Go ahead and swallow as much as you like. There's no glycerin in earth paste either, so you aren't left with that slimy film. Your teeth are clean and smooth and can remineralize just like nature intended. After a week, you'll wonder why other companies include so many chemicals that you don't need for a clean, fresh mouth. You won't believe how smooth your teeth are. And neither will she.
Thanks for letting me come.